Good evening. Good evening to NABJ and to the 2023 candidates for NABJ office. Thank you for joining us tonight for NABJ's first official candidates forum. I am Lynn Normett, and I am honored to have been asked to chair the 2023 NABJ Elections Committee. Behind the scenes helping us tonight, along with the incredible NABJ staff, are committee members Walter Middlebrook, who is the Foster Professor of Practice in the Communications Department at Pennsylvania State University, Gail Walker, founder of Envirocom Inc. and longtime parliamentarian for NABJ Chicago, Sia Naokor, news anchor and reporter at WOIO-TV in Cleveland, and the current NABJ parliamentarian and former Region 2 director, and Toy Thornton, traffic anchor and co-host of Good Day, Alabama at WBRC Fox News in Birmingham. Each of the committee members has spent a great many hours of valuable time helping make sure that we have a professional and a fair election. I thank each of you committee members. I also extend a very special thank you to Veronique Dotson, NABJ's Superwoman Membership Director, who has guided us in the right direction with her valuable knowledge and experience. Thank you, Veronique. Please know that the second candidates forum will be held Thursday, August the 3rd, from 2 to 4 p.m. at the Birmingham Jefferson Convention Center during the NABJ convention. I hope that you are like me and you are getting very excited about attending the convention in Birmingham, and I look forward to seeing many of you there. Thank you to the Birmingham NABJ for hosting us. The election polls are open to NABJ current members. I know that you have been receiving notices with a link to vote. Even if you haven't voted already or don't plan to vote in the next few days, keep voting on your mind. The actual convention starts on Wednesday, August the 2nd, and ends Sunday, August the 6th. You can vote between now and August the 4th. The polls will close on August the 4th at 5 p.m. The candidates have received notes indicating what our basic rules for the forum this evening will be. I would like to share them with you. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for an opening statement, 2 minutes to answer questions from me, the moderator, and at the appropriate time, 2 minutes to answer questions from the audience. The candidates will have 1 minute to rebut. And if you have a rebuttal, please raise your hand electronically. And each candidate will have 1 minute for closing statements. We will begin with my introducing the candidates to you, and then I will circle back and begin to pose questions, my questions, to get us started. Those of you in the audience may submit questions for the candidates via the Q&A box. We need your participation, and I encourage you to please submit your questions. The candidates for the 2023 NABJ elections are: for President, Tre'vell Anderson, Chief Imagination Officer, Slazon in Los Angeles, candidate for president. Ken Lemon, reporter, WSOC in Charlotte, North Carolina, candidate for president. Amir Vera, breaking news writer, CNN Warner Brothers Discovery in Los Angeles, candidate for vice president digital. Vance Lang, director production manager for CBS News in New York, and is candidate for vice president digital. But I found out just before we started the forum that due to some work responsibilities that cropped up at the last minute, and we know how that can be in our business, he will not be able to join us this evening. Vance Lang will not be able to join us this evening. For student representative, we have Anthony Council, a student at the University of North Texas, candidate for student representative. Grant Hines, student at High Point University, candidate for student representative. And Alex Perry, a student at Northwestern University, who is a candidate for student representatives. I will start by asking a question of the presidential candidates, and these questions are to be answered by each candidate. And I will remind you that we have a timekeeper who will alert you when you have, as your time runs out. But before that, I would like to give the candidates an opportunity to make opening statements. Tre'vell Anderson, please.
Thank you, Ms. Lynn. My name is Tre'vell Anderson. I use they, them pronouns. I'm currently Region 4 Director on the National Board and Chair of our LGBTQ+ Task Force. I'm an entertainment journalist that's based in Los Angeles. I've been a newspaper reporter. I've been an editor for a national magazine, an editor at large for an international digital outlet. And due in large part to being laid off, I'm now a freelancer with my own company under which I host a few podcasts and contribute to everyone from Ebony and Essence to the Los Angeles Times. And throughout my entire career, I've been advocating on behalf of Black journalists, whether it's president of the LA chapter or just a reporter trying to make sure that folks who look like me are getting the access that we need and the institutional support that we require. So in many ways, I feel like I represent and know where our industry is now and where it's going. And I have witnessed firsthand the ways that NABJ could better serve more of our members. We're grateful.
1 minute remaining.
We're grateful for the folks that we're great for, but for everyone else, we sometimes, leave a lot to be desired, and I want to change that. What does that look like? To me, that looks like fortifying and supporting our local chapters, revamping the national and chapter relationship. I want to empower our task forces so they can be our eyes and our ears across the industry. I want to make sure that we are competitive programmatically to continue to establish us as the leading training ground for Black journalists. And I want to refine our advocacy approach in a manner that allows us to build upon our legacy while also meeting this specific moment in our industry. And to meet that moment, we need a leader with energy and vision, and I like to say a little razzle dazzle of audacity to cut through all of the murkiness and the foolishness that we're navigating. I believe that I am that leader, and I look forward to earning you all support.
Thank you, Tre'vell.
Time's up.
Thank you for adhering to the time limit as well. Ken Lemon, your opening remarks.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank each and every one of you guys for attending here tonight. My name is Ken Lemon. I'm your current VP of Broadcast, a reporter in Charlotte, North Carolina. Fortunate to have won Edward R. Murrow, part of a great team to have earned 3 Emmy Awards and AP Awards. What I'm most proud of is the work that I do with NABJ and the value of it. Look, right now, there's been, judging on the age of what we know NABJ members are, it's probably been no time when NABJ has been as valuable as it is, as important to its members as it is, with attacks on diversity, equity, and inclusion, changes in the industry, trying to understand what AI is, how this is going to impact us, how we can best use AI, and then also looking at the shifts and the movements and the shifts towards digital and how we can best use those. This is where NABJ comes in. We need to have individuals with NABJ who can stand forthright, look companies and corporations in the eye, and explain to them in no uncertain terms how important it is that you have Black journalists on the job reporting in areas and that they are paid fairly. That means looking into, having a study into pay equity and making sure that we can go forth with data that allows us to fight that good fight. And also it means being able to train and work with our journalists, not just at the convention, but year round. That's something that I've been so fortunate to do as a regional director, is to be able to work with media summits and to be able to do regional and to think about what our journalists need, not right now, not just right now, but what they're going to need to survive and thrive. And I think I am the journalist who can do that. And I think I'm the person who can do that because I've learned what it means to work with you. We cannot do this by ourselves. One person can't do it by themselves, but we can do it effectively together. So I hope you vote for me, and I look forward to earning your vote.
Thank you, Ken. Thank you. And thank you for adhering to the time so perfectly. Amir Vera.
What's going on, everybody? I'm Amir Vera, the current VP of Digital, and I'm running for a second term. The reason I'm running again can be summed up into 3 words. That's rejuvenation, transparency, and leadership. First, rejuvenation. When I first became the Vice President of Digital, my main goals were to define digital for NABJ and revamp the Digital Journalism Task Force. I've accomplished those goals through trainings and not only appointing, but guiding our new DJTF chair through his first NABJ leadership position. That doesn't mean my work is done, though. While I plan to continue catering to our digital members through workshops, panels, and webinars on subjects like podcasting and artificial intelligence, I want to be your NABJ VP of Digital again to advocate for and rejuvenate all of our members and their pride in this organization. Second, transparency. In my 2 years on the board, I noticed transparency has always been an issue in the organization on all levels, between the staff, board, and membership. That gap of communication makes us as an organization lose track of what's important, our members. Under my continued tenure, I'll research ways to streamline communications within NABJ so members are aware of the activities. 1 minute. I'll also continue to ensure local chapters and task forces have the support they need from national. This includes, but is not limited to, fielding questions regarding finances, whether by email, text, or phone call, and helping craft programming that helps members get jobs they need in the changing digital landscape. And finally, there's leadership. Serving on NABJ's board helped me realize I want to be a leader in my newsroom, and I want others to take that step with me. I recently became the breaking news editor at CNN and was accepted in NABJ's Leadership Academy.
30 seconds.
Both have helped me understand what's needed to move up in a digital journalism space, and that should be shared with others who look like me and desire to be in leadership positions. Black journalists need to be in the room where decisions are made, and when reelected, I know I can provide training and resources for the next crop of leaders. Thank you.
Thank you, Amir. And thank you for adhering to the time limitation. Okay. Anthony Council, would you like to give your opening statement, please?
Hi, everyone. My name is Anthony Council, and I am a current student at the University of North Texas, running for student representative. And one of my biggest things for this is really 3 things. It's mentorship, it's having a voice, and being able to raise money for young students. I've always believed that everybody has a voice and everybody deserves to speak on it. Whether you are from a difficult background, whether you're from a very wealthy background, I believe, that everyone deserves to have a voice and everyone deserves to speak on it. One of the things that I'm very passionate about is telling people stories. I think that everyone deserves to talk about what they deserve to talk about, no matter what is going on in their life. And I think one of the biggest things about me that makes me different from a lot of people. Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry. Anyway, I'm just excuse me. One of the things that makes me very different and unique is that I come from 2 backgrounds. Thank you. I come from going to UNT as well as coming from Morehouse College. So being in 2 different types of diversities, I was able to be in newsrooms that were very different, newsrooms that looked like me, newsrooms that didn't really look like me, and get a different perspective and hearing a lot of people's different stories. I'm also a podcaster. I love to talk to different athletes. Being a sports journalist in my field of school right now,
30 seconds.
I'm able to talk to plenty of different people, and I think by voting for me, I'm able to tell your story. I'm able to listen to you and get the things that you are passionate about to higher ups, so that way we can make sure that your story is told.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Anthony. How about Grant Hines? What is your opening statement, please?
Hello, everyone. Good evening. Thank you for joining us today. I'm a student at High Point University. I'm in my first semester of a master's program here, but I just finished 4 years of undergrad, getting a journalism degree. I was president of my on-campus broadcast club, and there, I mean, I made headwaves. I broke stories on campus. I handled all the business. I produced. I reported. So I had a little taste of everything going into the industry. As well, I interned at a local news station here, Fox 8. And so with those experiences, I hope to come into this position serving students. First, I would like to, with the convention coming up, I would like to set up programs to cover the costs for students coming to the convention. Obviously, we have student programs, but if we have other like scholarships to serve students to cover the cost of hotels, flights, registration, that would be wonderful. A lot of students going to the industry don't know much about the business side. They get stuck in these contracts that basically overwork them and underpay them. So if we had an agency type program within NABJ, that's something that I would like to initiate. And then
30 seconds.
An employer screening mechanism. So basically matching Black employees, Black members of NABJ with employers. And through that screening mechanism, they can look at criteria like Black turnover rate, Black hiring rate, stuff like that, so that they know that they're in a newsroom where they'll be valued, respected, and appreciated for their work as Black journalists.
Okay. Thank you, Grant. Thank you very much. And now we will hear an opening statement from Alex Perry.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Alex Perry, and I'm running to be the next student representative for NABJ's National Board. Before I tell you about myself, I would like to thank everybody for their time this evening and their willingness to listen to our visions for NABJ. While I've contributed to local, regional, and national newsrooms, I'm most proud of the work that I did at my student newspaper at Northwestern University. I was the most recent academic year editor-in-chief of the Daily Northwestern. Above all, I support the importance of student journalism. This week, our student publication broke national news, leaving publications like ESPN, The Athletic, and Chicago Tribune in the dust. Through diligent investigative reporting, we uncovered a hazing scandal within the football program, ultimately leading to the dismissal of the head football coach. Now, again, I've been a part of journalism since I was 16. I'm now 21. I've worked in local, regional, national newsrooms, and our student newspaper is the most proud I've ever been of any work that I've done. So since being a part of the paper my freshman year, I'd advocated in different areas of it to bring resources to student journalists. For example, increasing the special stipend program for our first generation and low income students, which increases accessibility for students to be able to work in our newsroom. I also worked across the aisle with our broadcast program, Northwestern News Network, to host the first ever live stream associated student government election. So I'm able to work across the aisle, even though I did come up on the print editorial side of the newsroom. And now I'm actually live streaming from Harlem, from Manhattan, where I'm interning in the city at the Information because of somebody that I actually met at NABJ in Las Vegas last year. It was Malik Morris, and it wasn't at the job fair, but a breakfast. And Malik was 10 years older than me. We just chatted about his work, and he was the one who opened the door for me. So now I'm running for this position because I want to open up the door for everybody else in my generation, Gen Z, and the ones who come after me. So I'm asking you to vote for me because I believe in the voice and the work of young journalists. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you. Thank you. I must say, I'm a long time NABJ member and activist, and I enjoyed the statements from each of you, and I can tell that each candidate's heart is with NABJ, and you have a lot to offer to the organization. So now I'm going to go back to the presidential candidates and ask a question and then go down the line. Please bear with me. So let's start with, we can start with you again, Travell. I was going to switch it up, but let me ask you the question first. And then the same question will go to Ken. What is NABJ's greatest strength and its greatest weakness? So Travell, could you answer that first?
I sure can. I think our greatest strength is our history and our legacy. We, over the last 48 years, I think have made a lot of inroads, building upon the vision that our founders first set out. And I think for the folks who have been part of this organization who have benefited from that, we cherish that, we uplift it. In terms of our weaknesses, I think that Amir mentioned earlier transparency as an issue. I also think that we just aren't serving as many of our members in the ways that we could be. And so my campaign is really about making sure that we are meeting folks where they are as opposed to where we want them to be, and doing, putting in place policies and programs that allow us to do that.
Okay, thank you. Ken, what do you have to say on that subject?
Look, no doubt, our greatest strength is our members. You don't have to go very far to run into members who've done extraordinary things. And almost every time that I sit and talk with a member, they teach me something new about a profession that I hadn't known before. I went to a recent event in New York, and I sat down with a member who was showing me how they can isolate audio and record someone at a podium with all the other noise going on. That's remarkable. That's phenomenal. And our magic is when we get together and we begin to share that stuff. When we get to conventions, when we get to regionals, when we get to media institutes, and we learn how much someone else right next to us can help us learn and help us grow and help us develop. The challenge that we have is this. The challenge is that we're a growing organization. And I wish that I could take you around. Right now, I have a unique relationship, although I work in television, with newspapers. My office is in a newspaper right now. And I would love to just take you around and show you the empty desk.
1 minute.
5 years ago, there were 6 journalists working out of here. Now it's me and a part-time journalist in a massive newsroom here. And coming in is kind of like being in a mausoleum. Look, this has happened to print. It's going to change television. And if we aren't ready, if we aren't active, if we aren't engaged, those changes can steamroll us. And particularly, we've seen oftentimes that the first in, the first out is usually us. And so we need people who are going to stand up for us and help us understand exactly what it takes to take it to that next level. That means getting back together again and learning from one another again.
Okay, thank you, Travell and Ken. Now, Amir, I have a question for you, and that is, what do you think are the biggest challenges facing NABJ in regards to the digital media arena? And this is for Amir Vera.
Thank you for that question. Right now, at this specific moment in time, I would say our biggest challenge would be AI. I can't tell you how many times I've had conversations with board members, with members at large, just about like their fears about AI. I could tell you that I went to ONA last year, and I remember being in they had a big giant stadium session about AI, saying that it's going to be the biggest revolution since the internet and everything like that. And at the time, I'm looking at it and I was like, is it? And then, 6 months later, like we start hearing about ChatGPT and everything like that. And like the biggest thing I hear from journalists is like, they're really freaked out about like, is this going to affect my job? How are we going to do this? Like, what jobs are going to be wiped out by this? And I feel like we don't need to be fearful of AI at this moment in time. We need to be more so figuring out how we can work with it. And one of the examples that we can use to work with it is that the Washington Post first put out this article in February 2023, so February this year, about prompt engineers. And I know for a fact that there's a lot of—
1 minute.
Okay. There's a lot of journalists who have those transferable skills to become a prompt engineer. And anybody who's listening to this, I can send you the link to the Washington Post article discussing what a prompt engineer is. And that's like one of the biggest quote unquote tech jobs going on right now. You don't even need like a computer degree to be a tech engineer. But I look at AI the same way I looked at the advent of the internet and the advent of social media. Like there's jobs currently right now that didn't exist 5 years ago, 10 years ago, that now exist because of social media. So just
30 seconds.
imagine 5, 10 years from now, what jobs can exist with artificial intelligence.
Okay, thank you very much. And of course, that's my weakest area, the technology and the artificial intelligence. And I'm so glad that we have people like you who have a handle on it. Now let's move on to our students with a question or two. And let's start with Grant this time. How can NABJ reach out to more students?
Well, I think there's right now a bit of a lack of communication between the national office and student chapters. So I think even if it's something as simple as like a weekly newsletter or a monthly newsletter, reaching down to students, specifically to the student chapters and their leadership, showing them different programming, different opportunities that are coming up. And I know there's something similar now that goes out to all NABJ members. But if it was tailored specifically towards students, I think that would bridge the disconnect between the national office and student chapters.
Okay, thank you, thank you. Alex, how would you respond to that question?
Yeah, I definitely think having multiple touch points, even around the convention, would be very, very helpful for students. I thought Grant's idea for newsletter was really amazing. I mean, I edit a newsletter and it's #1 for distribution right now, like next to social media. So I think it's a great place to reach students. I think that, you know, when I think back to NABJ Las Vegas last year, the people I connected with the most were also other college students. But when I was looking for a mentor, I was looking for young adults as well. So I think increasing that sort of mentorship where you can talk to people about early career will make people more excited and passionate about their future. Because right now, like you're hearing Amir say about the industry, AI is scaring people, pay is scaring people. And just having somebody close to you to reassure you and sort of guide you through those early years so you're not as lost would be very helpful. And I think that can come in the form of mentorship, but it can also come for your peers. So I think that, you know, individual chapters, I'm a member of the chapter at Northwestern, having partnerships with other universities' chapters would be very, very useful, because I think the best way that we can learn is from each other. And then as we gradually get on through our careers in 10, 15 years, those people can be your original connections. Even if we met at a convention like 10 years ago, seeing someone who you grew with, I think that's the best way that we can sort of like establish communication and further community with our student members. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Anthony, how would you respond to that question?
Yeah, for one, I would agree with both of them. I think those two, the newsletter and just teaming up with other student chapters, is a great idea. One of the ideas that I was thinking of as they were talking was kind of creating an ecosystem, allowing all the student chapters really to come together as one and to connect with people. I had the opportunity to go to the University of Oregon, being from Texas. I had the opportunity to go to the University of Oregon to talk to their NABJ chapter. And one of the biggest problems that they had was connecting with other NABJ student chapters. And Oregon State is like down the street from the University of Oregon. And I would tell them like, hey, go to Oregon State, talk to them, create a connection, create a network, because networking is how we all kind of got here. And I would also say, like Alex said, is creating a mentorship of having a program where young student journalists who may be freshmen or sophomores they team up with a senior rep who
1 minute.
is kind of like, let's just say, for example, like Mr. Ken, right? He's a journalist, he's on TV all the time. Having a young journalist to be able to talk to Mr. Ken on a daily basis or a weekly basis or even a monthly basis will give them the opportunity to not make the same mistakes as they would have as a freshman. They would have networking like none other. And I think it would just, when they go out into the workforce, they're a lot more prepared. They're a lot more ready to take on different tasks and
30 seconds.
that they may face when they're going into it, or they're better off than where they started.
Okay, thank you, thank you. I'm inspired by our young people here. Good, great for the next generation of journalists coming on board. So I'm going to go back to the presidential candidates with a question. And this time I'll start with you, Ken. What would you do as president to strengthen NABJ?
Well,
And of course, that could be on a different number of levels. Well, what would you do? What would you propose as president that
We
would
need to be-
strengthen NABJ?
Thank you. We need to be in the position to better help our journalists. And what that means is we need to work on better funding sources so that we can do that. Because I was on the Hurricane Relief Task Force that was designed whenever Texas just got ravaged by 3 hurricanes back to back. And what we gave was a small amount of money to some of our members who were without homes, who only had their jobs and they didn't know what they were going to do once they got off work. Being able to be there and assist them in those situations, that matters greatly. And that's one of the things that we can really do to benefit our members. We cannot do that until we begin to expand our funding sources. One of the things that I am doing now, because I said, let's not wait until we see if I become president, let's do this. The weekend after the week after the national convention, NABJ is going to be up in Martha's Vineyard. We'll be there talking to people with corporate connections,
1
talking
minute.
to people who are philanthropists. I've already had a connection with one person from a corporation who's invited me in to speak. And the purpose for me to be there, the purpose for us to get together is to connect financially between that organization and NABJ. We've got to get better at doing that so that we can service our members better, so that we can begin to do year-round training, so that we can begin to fund some of those resources that will help our members through the toughest of times. And there may be some tough times coming, looking at what we have and all the changes
30
that
seconds.
And then we also need to be there to give scholarships. I'm proud to say that I was part of an initiative that gave away in the last 2 years $60,000 worth of scholarships, and then champion the effort to connect our young journalists, college journalists, to job opportunities right out the door.
Okay, thank you. Travail, how would you answer that question? What would you do to strengthen NABJ if you were president of the organization?
When I think of the strength of our organization, first and foremost comes to mind is advocacy. I think it is odd that we as an organization cannot answer the question of how many Black journalists there are in this country. And we can't answer that question because we've not done the research, we've not done the study, and because we don't have that type of data, right? Such as how long it takes our members to go from general assignment to one of the coveted positions at a newspaper, right? Or at, a broadcaster. Because we haven't done that, we haven't collected that information. I think we often find ourselves advocacy-wise in a responsive, in a reactive position, and not a proactive position. So that's something that comes to mind and that I think about first and foremost. I also think about, the economic realities of this industry. The reality is more and more of our members are going to be laid off.
1 minute.
Because that's just what's happening, right? So what are we doing as NABJ to be a resource and to provide resources, right, for what will be the inevitable for our members? I think because I'm a freelancer, right? I think in that particular way. What would it look like if we had resources to teach people about, do you go the LLC route or the S Corp route? How do you go about negotiating your rates or the rights to your work when you are a freelancer? I think in those
30
particular
seconds.
ways, we as an organization can be stronger. And as a result, our members will be stronger and be able to carve out the careers that they desire.
Mhm. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm now going to go to Amir for a question to our vice presidential candidate. What are the challenges facing Black journalists who are in the digital arena? Amir?
Yeah, I heard. The
Mhm.
challenges facing journalists in the digital arena is, at this point, I would say upward mobility. You think about like the directors and stuff like that, and off the top of my head, I can only think of one Black director or like leader in the digital space who has that title, director and leader. Of course, there's other, history makers in the digital journalism space, but there's only one that I can think of that's made waves, and they work at the Washington Post. I think we need a lot more leaders in the digital space, especially Black leaders in the digital space, just because we need to have that voice in the digital realm. And there are just some things that I believe that us as Black journalists, we can provide that, other non-Black journalists would not be able to provide. So like, such as trending topics and stuff like that. There's
1 minute.
There's a lot of stuff that happens in the digital space. And obviously digital is not just social media and stuff like that, but there is a lot of things that happen in the digital space that obviously cater to a Black voice. And I know that just from being in the job that I was in for the last 5 years, I was often the person that leaders and other news gatherers came to, like, is this a big deal and stuff like that, when it came to like, topics on like Black Twitter and stuff like that. So just imagine having a person in a leadership space. They would be able
30
to have
seconds.
that, they would be able to have that voice in order, they'd be able to have that voice so that way we could cover things authentically, if you will. So that's what I think is the biggest issue in the digital space.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. I would now like to pose another question to our student journalist. So the question I would like to raise, because I know that today's world is considerably different from when I started in the media, but what are the biggest challenges facing students trying to transition into the real working world these days? What is the biggest challenge there? So I guess you're saying, who is that question addressed to? How about you, Anthony?
Thank you again for the question. From talking to many of my colleagues, being president of my student chapter, as well as going to different NABJ student chapters and talking to them and asking them that very same question, one of the biggest challenges that I've heard is how to understand your contract when you're going into a newsroom. I've had so many people tell me that when they go into it, they're there for 2 years, and sometimes the boss doesn't let them leave. And sometimes they have to get another job, or they have to get another opportunity while also being a journalist. And that can be sometimes the most challenging thing when you're coming out of college, because you have student loans sometimes, you have things that you have to pay. And when you're under a contract, it can be very challenging to just make ends meet sometimes. And I think that's probably one of the biggest challenges for a lot of these students is, where am I going to get my money? Like where am I going to try to
1 minute.
Where am I going to try to make ends meet and live? Because yes, journalism is a passion, but also it's something that we love to do. And it's something we want to thrive off of. And I think that giving students the opportunity, like a financial fitness area, while they're in college, so when they go out into the real world, they're prepared and they're set to take on a newsroom, and they're able to take on different types of stories and different types of
30
situations.
seconds.
It will really help them in the long run. So that way they're not thinking about money, they're not thinking about the challenges that they have to face on a daily basis, and it could make it a lot smoother.
Okay, thank you, thank you. Alex, how would you answer that question?
Absolutely. So I'm entering my 4th year at Northwestern as a double major in economics and journalism, and then a minor in data science. But when I first got to the university, I was a double in international relations and journalism. And then somebody told me that I need to diversify my skill set as a journalist. I think that young journalists right now need to learn about the ecosystem in a way that doesn't pigeonhole them in a specific career path within journalism. And what I mean by that is when you go into media, understanding the business of media, understanding different avenues like audience engagement. How do I become the owner of a company? How do I learn how to launch a product within a newsroom? Not just this path of like being a reporter for 10 to 15 years, then being an editor, because it's not reasonable for 100% of people to pigeonhole themselves into that path. So I think that what I want NABJ to do, and what I would do as a student representative, is kind of open up the door for more innovation within journalism. When you think of student journalists, you'll think of a reporter, you'll think of an editor, but where are the people who are thinking about new business models for journalism? Where are the people thinking about how to produce or how to create a sustainable newsroom? I think that if we offer up those areas of NABJ where people can learn about these different areas of media, I think that would be really useful. And again, this is something that I learned like literally as a student going through college, because my manager at a newsroom who was an editor was like, learn about this, watch out for this. And it's all these things that are kind of like understood when you're a bit more seasoned in the industry.
30 seconds.
But no one gives you a handbook or a guide. And I think even that sort of communication from early career journalists to young journalists would be extremely helpful for anyone who finds themselves lost or wanting a bit more safety as they go into this turbulent industry. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Now, I believe, some hands going up. Was that someone having a rebuttal? No? Okay. I'm not as tech savvy as I should be, but I really thought I saw some hands floating up the screen, so maybe that's not how that works. So I'm going to go back to the presidential candidates with another question. And those of you who are in the audience, the NABJ audience, if you have any questions, please submit them to Q&A. Would appreciate that. We're going to get to those questions in just a moment.
Sorry, Miss Lynn.
Yes.
I think you skipped me on the last question. I was the only student that didn't go. Yeah.
Forgive me. Forgive me.
That's all right.
Please. That's why I should just stay in order. Then I won't make this mistake. Yes. How would you answer that question, sir?
Yeah. So going off. First, Anthony, finances are a big thing. As many of you know, journalists are underpaid. They've always been underpaid. And I think a lot of people in our generation just get so wrapped up in wanting to make a lot of money because material things matter a lot to our generation. And so I think just making a fair wage to afford basics is a start. And then the second thing is just keeping students interested in the news. A lot of my colleagues that I've seen here, they aren't really watching the news. They aren't watching what their previous, the people in the industry before them, what they have done. And so I think having mentorship within NABJ to say, first of all, start watching the news, but also this is how it's done is also a first step. And I think the other challenge is
1 minute.
Shifting towards the digital industry. So a lot of students aren't used to broadcast. They're used to getting news from their phones, TikTok, Instagram, whatever you have it. And so just getting them, once they go into a newsroom, having them prepared not only for broadcast, but for digital platforms as well. And I think a lot of colleges are doing well at that, but I don't think they're doing a good enough job. So within NABJ,
30
training
seconds.
these Black journalists to be multifaceted, to report on the digital landscape.
Okay. Thank you so much, and I apologize for that, Grant. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Now back to the presidential candidates. I have another question for each of you. Now you've talked about strengthening NABJ and what the weaknesses are, and there has been some mention of fundraising. But what exactly fundraising strategies might you propose as president of NABJ to help strengthen the organization? Travell, will you answer that one first, please?
Absolutely. I think, it's similar to what Ken has already mentioned, actually, which is, and presidential candidates have said this for the last few cycles, right? Mm-hmm. Which is that we need to figure out other ways of bringing in funds beyond the national convention. I think oftentimes we think of that, and it's been articulated that we do that through, regional conferences and media institutes. But I actually think that, there are other funding opportunities. And I think that sometimes we end up stretching ourselves thin, thinking that having, for example, 4 regionals every single year, right, is a financially beneficial thing for us as an organization. And the reality is it's not always the case for various different reasons. And so what would it look like to take our, outside of convention programming, right, and be a little bit more intentional in the ways that we go about courting support for it? I had the opportunity this year to put on our
1 minute.
I had the opportunity to put on our first ever Arts and Entertainment Media Institute. And I think that there's a rich possibility of what our partnerships could look like by tapping into other entities that are journalism adjacent in those particular ways. So what can we do to expand that particular institute? And I do think that we need to be exploring philanthropic opportunities while also recognizing, right, that the philanthropic opportunities are not, the end all be all.
30 seconds.
Recent data that came out about the ways in which, philanthropy is not benefiting, Black news entities as much as they are, our counterparts, right? And so how do we go about making sure that the programming, the sponsorships, the entities that we are courting, right, believe in what we're doing and also are allowing us to do what we need to do with the funds that they provide us, not just, the specific things that they're looking to accomplish.
Okay, thank you. Ken?
I'm smiling when I look down this list of people who are here because some of the people in this group have been really instrumental in what we're done. So when I was Region 3 director, my first year, you talk about the fundraising, I had a group of individuals who really just brought me up through this. My first year there, we were able to render $20,000 back to NABJ because we went outside of traditional media. And what I did with that group that we did, which was Georgia Power, a power company, not a media entity, is I tried my best to treat them right. And some of the people here who are in this group, we sat down in a room and we wrote thank you letters. We signed cards and we sent that up. The next year we went to Birmingham, Alabama. And when I went there, I went over then to Alabama Power and I said, ask about us back in Georgia. Ask us how we did there. And what we did in Birmingham was we broke a record. We went to that power company, we went to Mercedes-Benz, and then we also went to the media companies as well, and we got money. But what we need to be able to do is we need to flex outside the traditional. One person on here also just really kind of pulled my ear, and I love that people give me the opportunity to learn from them and talked about what it means to work into certain industries that are going to be strong and are interested in courting us that can be funders for us. And these are corporations with like interests. And that's an area that I'm working into now to try to make sure that we fund ourselves nationally, regionally, locally, because that's important that we have strong chapters that have the
30
opportunity to
seconds.
do great things on the ground. And that means working with our Council of Presidents in a different way to make sure that we have training that's happening biannually, similar to Chapter Day. And those are the things that I want to do there. And those are the entities that I think is going to prop the organization up.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, both of you. Very good responses there. Amir, have another question for you. What can NABJ members do themselves to strengthen their technical skills? And how important is strengthening those technical skills as well?
Well,
Go ahead.
first, I would say coming to the trainings with the Digital Journalism Task Force. I know when Joseph Ferguson, who's the current Digital Journalism Task Force chair, when he first came on, he held an event this past fall that I believe Tre'vell was on as well, about how to build your audience just on social media and on podcasting, if you have like building your brand essentially. And then I know when I first became the VP of digital, I held a Women in Digital event. And then I also held a History Makers event with Retha Hill, who was an integral part of, and I know this is the third time I'm mentioning them, but she was an integral part of starting the Washington Post website. So like the Digital Journalism Task Force, I know who I work closely with because I am the Digital Journalism Task Force liaison. I know that they are planning to do an event on podcasting and are hoping to do an event on AI in the fall. So, you know, just come into Digital Journalism Task Force meetings and things like that. Also,
1 minute.
Also, I have members asking me about technical stuff all the time. So like you can also reach out to me via DM or anything like that. I'm at the Amir Vera on all social platforms. But why is it important to improve your social skills, your technical skills? Because in journalism today, you really need to know how to do everything. Like I myself, I know how to edit video. I know how to shoot video. I know you've all seen my videos on Twitter and things like that. I edited those myself. And you just like
30 seconds.
it's just important to know how to do everything. You can't just know how to write or know how to edit or know how to be on camera or know how to shoot and stuff like that. You need to learn how to do everything. So that's why it's important to have technical skills.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. So now I'm back to our students. I have one other question, and then we're going to take questions from the audience. What would your advice, this is to the students, what is your advice to other students aspiring a career in the media today? So let's start with you, Grant.
Well, the first thing is
the students who are aspiring.
Yeah, the first thing is to start practicing your skills. So that means if you want to be a reporter, go shoot some stand-ups, go shoot some pretend live shots, start practicing your editing. If you want to be a producer, same thing, start practicing your editing, start making rundowns. I know Rundown Creator is a great source for that. The second thing is get connected with people within NABJ, get connected with people that you know or maybe you don't know in news. Never be afraid to cold reach out to somebody that you don't know. I mean, that's how
1 minute
in the first place, right? And then I think the third thing is just to go for it. Take a lot of risks. This is the time to be taking risk and messing up, because once you get your foundation in news, there's a lot less room for you to mess up. So start early, take risk, get connected, and have fun as well.
Thank you. Anthony, how would you respond to that question? What advice would you have for other students aspiring to a career in journalism?
So when I got into this business, it started back in 2019, and I was a young, spontaneous journalist, didn't really know what I wanted to do. And my first mentor was someone who just got into the Hall of Fame, Miss Cheryl Smith. And I met her at an event, and she's always been my mentor ever since. And so my first piece of advice would be get a mentor. Find someone who can cultivate into you what they've learned and gain knowledge from them, learn from them, and learn from their mistakes, and just be a sponge from whatever they're giving you. My second piece of advice would be use what you have and don't be afraid if you fail, because failure is the only way that you learn, and the failure is the only way that you grow. Using this piece of technology right here with your phone is probably one of the most amazing, innovative things that has ever been made, because anyone can be a
1
journalist
minute.
just by posting it on Instagram, posting it on Facebook. From my social media, I've posted some things off of there, just being a journalist. And then lastly, kind of like what Grant said, just go for it. You never know until you try. And if you don't try, then you'll never know. So just take chances, make mistakes, and just continue to be, just continue to go for it. So definitely get a mentor, use what you got, and just go for it.
Okay, thank you. Alex, how would you answer that? What advice do you have for other students?
Absolutely. I would tell them, similar to how you pitch stories, learn how to pitch yourself, because that's ultimately how you stand out as a person when it comes to job opportunities. Learn how to tell your story, learn how to communicate to someone why you're getting into media, why you're on your beat. When people ask me, what do you do? I say business journalism and the business of journalism. And that succinctly ties in everything I study at Northwestern. Savvy with numbers, but I'm also interested in how we can build sustainable media businesses and contribute to a healthier ecosystem. That sort of story kind of just like encapsulates who you are and shows employers, shows editors, shows other people in the newsroom that you know what you're about, and you're willing to like tie that together as a story and put that passion into your work. So that's some advice that I would give people, because sometimes you are in places where you have to be your own advocate. You have to have your editor believe in you. And for that to happen, you need to communicate your value. So some like steps that you can take to do that: when you have very important clips, say you have an investigative piece, say you have this newsletter, write it down, write down your wins, write down your awards. If you had something go viral, write it down. So when you go on to your next job in 5 years, or you're looking for like an opportunity, you can say, I did this, it increased viewership by this, and this many people subscribed to our newsletter because of it. That's how you sell the work that you've done, and that's how you sell the impact. The second piece of advice I would give people is that when you get an opportunity, thank the people who gave you the opportunity, but also help the people who are coming after you. The only reason that I have opportunities that I've gotten is because people believed in me.
30 seconds.
And I look at the people coming after me and I believe in their work. So when I go into these newsrooms, I'm going to advocate for people I believe in those rooms where they might not necessarily be present. And the third piece of advice is a little small, but be kind to everybody. Literally talk to everybody, be kind to everybody. This is a small industry, and people know what you're about, not only through directly meeting you, but the impression they get from you. So I'd really say don't discount anybody. Just because somebody doesn't have a million clips doesn't mean they don't have value, and doesn't mean they can't contribute to a newsroom.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very, very much. We are now going to take questions from our NABJ members who are in attendance. They're posing some questions, and sometimes the questions are to a specific candidate, and sometimes they may apply to others as well. Now, I have member of the Elections Committee, Walter Middlebrook, is working on the questions. Do you have any questions in particular, Walter, you would like to pose?
I sent you a message in chat, but I'll put it out loud. We have several questions from the audience about from the presidential candidates. Would you talk about your plans for increasing and supporting the local chapters?
Madam Chair?
So, who would like to start? Ken, you want to start there? And then
It's okay. Yeah. So I was chair of Council of Presidents, and at that time I had over 100 chapters that I was working with, and that really kind of set me on a path where I love, and I still work with chapters even today to help strengthen them. But A lot of the chapters will tell you, a lot of chapter leaders will tell you that after COVID, it has been difficult to reassemble people, to get them back together. Right now we're doing one chapter day. And that's a one day that we can get everybody together and try to teach them everything that we think that they need to know about strengthening their chapters. That's not enough. We need 2 days. We need to do this biannually because we need to make sure that our chapters are clued in what's happening, the changes in NABJ, but also that we're giving them the very best advice on how to move forward consistently and continually. The other thing is that we need to, and this is one of the things that I want to work on, is we need to have a plan in place for our board members to be more present, to be in front of our members. It's
1
one
minute.
thing to pick up a phone and call. It's another thing to be on Zoom. It's quite another thing for me to be face to face with you. And we had a conversation together in the same place to be able to share ideas and grow. And if we don't begin to work on this chapter problem, then we're going to start to lose members. This convention is great and it's a great way to build, but we also need to build these chapters up. And so we need to think very seriously about how we expand our chapter grant program. Right now, we give away 500 in fall, 500 in
30
spring.
seconds.
And if we can afford to do so, we need to work like hell to be able to afford to do so. We need to be able to give more away so that our chapters can be stronger and we can help them grow and develop with more meetings with them.
Okay, thank you, Ken. Travell, would you like to respond to that?
Absolutely. I am the immediate past president of the Los Angeles chapter. I've been on the Council of Presidents and the Circle of Presidents that Ken mentioned. And, I think the relationship between the national organization and our local chapters is finicky at best, right? And that's just because of how it's set up. Right? Our local chapters are independent entities, and so many of them are struggling to get and maintain their 501c3 status, let alone, remain in compliance with the national organization in terms of their official affiliate status. I think that we need to have serious conversations about what that relationship looks like, and realize that what's currently at play just isn't working for a lot of chapters. It's working for many, but it's not working for a lot of them. So how can we begin to make those particular changes?
1 minute.
I think that the chapter grants that Ken just mentioned, the LA chapter hardly ever applied to those chapter grants because $500 is nothing if you're trying to put on an event. Right. And we as NABJ, we can afford to provide more money, right, for those chapter grants. They're great for, I think, student chapters who stretch the funds as much as they can. But for so many local chapters, we've got to be doing better. But it requires us as a national
30 seconds.
organization to realize that we are nothing without our chapters. They should be our first, line of defense and offense in these local communities. But the reality is many of them are struggling. And they're barely meeting. COVID is an issue, but it was happening before COVID, right? So I think it's a longer institutional issue that we have to look at, not just something that is kind of happening right now.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Walter?
If I may, I'm gonna make a suggestion. Cut the time down to 1 minute responses, and because we've got till 8:30 here. Number one. Number two, again for the presidential candidates, we got one question regarding media literacy and what actions would you take in terms of expanding NABJ's role in terms of the bigger picture of media literacy?
And this is for the presidential
For the-
candidates.
For the presidential.
And we're going to ask you to keep your answers to 1 minute because we are running out of time. Okay. Ken, would you like to answer that one first? And Walter, will you repeat it?
The question is, there's a bigger picture of issue out there, media literacy and responding to, and should NABJ, what would NABJ's role under your leadership be in terms of developing and addressing media literacy?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Okay.
Ken. Mhm.
And so this is a mammoth question and a great question for us to ask, because this is a thing that's impacting each and every one of us. Question, mistrust of media. And one of the things that we need to do is we need to work with sponsor partners that allow us to get in the ground in a key way. The way that we want to do that, and I think the best way to do that is not only with young people who are engaging, but also those college and younger, and we want to make it an exchange. Why is it that you don't trust?
30
Why is it
seconds.
that you have trouble understanding? We can't answer those questions until we know exactly what those problems are. And quite honestly, in the Black community, we cannot afford to be media literate long at all. We need to be as advised as possible. And we know we're not the only people who are interested in that. And so it's looking for those partners who allow us to get out there, teach, educate, and learn back from people so that we can better address those issues and bring more confidence in the media again.
Okay, thank you. Travell?
When I think of this question of media literacy, I always talk about how I hate that people are getting their news from the Shade Room or Hollywood Unlocked. And I think that we as NABJ, as an organization, could be a little bit more hands-on with those folks who are not journalists, right? But their work is being interpreted as journalism by the broader community, right? And impacting this media literacy. So what would it look like for NABJ, right? As we are serving and training journalists to also be thinking about, you know, folks who call themselves content creators, right? Folks who
30
are
seconds.
uploading on TikTok, right? What would it look like for NABJ to reach out to a Shade Room, to reach out to a Hollywood Unlocked, right? And add some heft, right? Some journalistic rigor to the work that they're doing. Because the reality is the audience thinks that they're journalists and thinks that it's reporting, right? And we know there to be a difference. And I think NABJ can play a particular role in that conversation in shifting how folks see that.
Okay, thank you very much. Walter, Sia, do you have?
There is,
other
okay,
questions?
I'm coming at you again. There are a lot of people out there asking questions about the situation with Philadelphia and the
Mhm.
chapter there, and what the two presidential candidates, can you explain your thoughts on the issues, and what do you plan to do with it if you were elected?
Okay, who would like to go
Madam-
first on that?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
So I've had an opportunity to talk to some people in Philadelphia, and I'm so empathetic. My heart goes out to them. This is a city that had a proud chapter, a strong chapter, that is no longer a chapter of NABJ, not because NABJ pushed out, but because this is a chapter who decided that they were going to step back. As Council of President's Chair, I can tell you, as a regional director, I can tell you, we've had chapters on the books for a long time because we always want to leave, even though they're not compliant. We always want to leave an opportunity for a chapter to just resume and take
30
over.
seconds.
And go back. I would love for the opportunity to do that. We need a chapter in Philadelphia that is going to be a chapter of journalists who are going to serve the people of Philadelphia and can reclaim that mantle, that proud mantle of being a flagship for NABJ, being one of those stalwart chapters that helps NABJ grow, develop, and learn in a market that is important to Black journalists and to Black people.
Thank you.
Well, I'll say that, you know, my vantage point on the Philadelphia issue is that they did not step back because, you know, they did not step back because there was an issue that they felt could be rectified. They stepped back because they found themselves, the leadership team there found themselves in conflict with the current NABJ leadership in terms of how we operate our relationship with the chapters. This goes back to what I was saying earlier. You know,
30 seconds.
The need for us to think differently about the relationship between the national organization and the local chapters. And if we are not open and interested in constantly having conversations about what that relationship looks like, I think we would have more chapters, right? We have other chapters now who have chosen to remain out of compliance. And I think that that's something that we should be concerned about. And we should consider how, you know, causing a chapter to step back, right, sets a precedent for others.
Okay. Thank you very much for the answer on a very tough question. Thank you. So Sia and Walter, you have additional questions, please.
Yes, I have questions. There's a question from a new member who says he's a veteran journalist who's attending his first convention in Birmingham, and he would like to know what he should experience this next month. So he would like to hear from the presidential candidates.
Okay. How about you going first, Travell?
Can you repeat the question? I couldn't hear it.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Okay, thank you. The question is from a veteran journalist of 20 years. He's attending his first convention in Birmingham this August, and he wants to know what he should expect and what he should experience.
Got you. Well, I hope that you have the experience that many of NABJ members talk about having, right? Which is that family reunion aspect. It's that, professional development and that training, even as a veteran member. I think that there are, we have a host of programming options. I think that hopefully will service you in that particular way. I would encourage you to take some time, go through the program booklet. It's a lot. We offer a lot, but it's important to do that so that you can figure out specifically, what are the panels, what are the programs that are going to be of use for you and your particular experience, and then use it as an opportunity to build that network, to build that family that we all say NABJ can be.
Okay. I'd also like for Amir to answer that question. Thank you very much, Travell. And
Madam Chair, should I go also, or should I?
Oh,
need me to go first?
Yes.
That's okay. That's all right. It's a tough seat that you sit in.
I tell you. Thank you.
Let me know when you're ready for me.
Now, go.
I want you to take down my number. I congratulate you for coming. 704-564-0313. 704-564-0313. 13. Look, Birmingham is going to be a beautiful city, and it's going to be a wonderful setting for NABJ. I've made a few trips back, and they are really welcoming us. The city is, the chapter is, everyone's doing that. And you're going to find one thing that I wanted to press upon myself and Dr. Sib, who's a board member, is we need to be on with
30
AI.
seconds.
You're going to see some AI stuff talked about on that main stage, because if you're not in it and we're not learning early, then you're going to be steamrolled by this. I want you to go, and I want you to learn not only about the history. 16th Street Baptist Church is just up the street. When you get an opportunity, go by and see that. But I want you to really absorb the feel of NABJ. Our folks can be extremely welcoming. Our folks in the networking that you get there, I have had more job opportunities that I could help other people with because I'm spent in the lobby than anywhere else. Thank you.
Thank you. Amir, would you have anything to add to that question?
Yeah, I would say what to expect from your first NABJ is like the biggest thing for me is networking. You got to meet people, when you're sitting down, when you're on the elevator, when you're eating lunch, dinner, at the bar, at the end of the night, network with people. Like, don't be afraid to talk to people. I think Alex mentioned this earlier. Be nice to everybody. Don't blow anybody off or anything like that, because I promise you, you never know who you're going to meet at NABJ. I'm a testament to that. I got my job, my current job and my previous job through NABJ, just by going to workshops, and networking with people. Everybody on the board knows that I ask a lot of questions. So, be as inquisitive as you can be, talk to people when you can, and, just network as much as you can. That is my biggest piece of advice when going to your first convention.
Thank you. Thank you. And I must say, I had a job opportunity from the convention as well, the last convention, to start writing a column, which I continue to do. So even though I was retired, still opportunities at NABJ crop up. It's a great opportunity. You had a question?
For our student members, the question on the map is, how do you propose to increase the student membership and reaching out to school students that don't attend predominantly that schools that have chapters, that don't have chapters?
Okay. Anthony, can you start us with your response to that?
Yes, absolutely. Well, my previous school, Morehouse College, we actually are now just starting to create our first ever chapter, which is fantastic. And how we were able to do that was to really get people involved, talk to different mentors, talk to different people that are around the community, that's kind of like outside of Atlanta, Georgia. And I guess to answer the question is by talking to different people who are kind of outside of
30 seconds.
your specific chapter. So if I have a chapter in Texas, talking to different people in Georgia, talking to people in North Carolina about their chapter and getting advice from them and trying to create a chapter for a specific state or a specific area. Because at the end of the day, there's so many of us around the country who are journalists, that we need to all come together as one so that we can all have a chapter and all kind of get a piece of the pie.
Okay, thank you. So Grant, would you have a response to that?
Yeah, so here at High Point University, we don't have a chapter either, and it's a predominantly white institution. And so we're actually trying to get one started, and that's a way that students can get involved in NABJ. But outside of High Point, a lot of other colleges don't have student chapters. And I think it's beyond colleges even. Young journalists who are starting to go into different markets, they may not want to join their NABJ chapter because they don't know how long they're going to be in that city.
30 seconds.
So getting connected with students in a way that, maybe setting up an at-large chapter for students because they're not in college, but they don't want to join their city chapter.
Okay, thank you. Alex?
So I'm definitely privileged enough to have a longstanding chapter at Northwestern. It's NABJNU. I want to say that the backbone of the chapter, the students are great. We're wonderful, but the reason that it's lasted so long is because of faculty support. When you look at university, the turnover happens so quickly. If you're at a four-year university and you're out. But what remains the same are the faculty advisors, the ones who really, mentor the freshmen and keep them there until they're seniors. And I just want to thank Dr. Greenwell, Dean Whitaker, Professor Nettles. I mean, all of these people, all these faculty, they are the ones who kept our chapter going. And I think that what we can do to increase student membership at chapters or again, chapters at universities that don't have them is reach out to English professors, reach out to history professors, reach out if they don't have a journalism program, because those are where journalists gravitate to. So you reach out to those professors and you say, hey, do you have students interested in journalism? Here we have a package. This is how you start a chapter. Thank you for your time.
And thank you. Thank you. Thanks to each of you. We are now coming to the end of what has been a very invigorating and enlightening candidates forum, and I hate that we're coming to an end. So we're now going to ask the candidates to give us a closing statement. And for those of you joining us this evening, the NABJ staff will be putting up, I see it's already up now. In the chat room, they have put up the social media handles for each of the candidates, for those who want to do more research on the candidates, find out more about who they are, what they're posting. So you can go to the chat room to get that information on the various candidates. So we're going to start back where we started from the beginning, and I'm asking Travell to give your closing statement.
Thank you, Ms. Lynn. So at the company that I founded called Slay Jean, under which I do my reporting and storytelling, I call myself the Chief Imagination Officer, not the CEO or owner, because I know quite intimately the transformative power of one's imagination, right? To make that which, might have once been impossible possible. And I believe in the possibility of what this organization can be to our members, to Black journalists and communications professionals, and to
30
this
seconds.
industry. And that's why I'm running for president. We'll be hitting our 50th anniversary in a couple years. And I want to make sure that as we cross that milestone, that our importance to and relevancy in this industry doesn't wane. That means we've got to do something differently because the landscape we're navigating is different. What better way to accomplish that than by electing someone who is different than anyone who's ever come for this office before? I believe that's how we continue to make good on the vision of our founders first articulated. Thank you.
Thank you. Ken, may we have your closing statement, please? 1 minute.
I want to make note of somebody who's pretty special to me in this. This is Deirdre Montague, who is here, who is a student who had mastered one portion of work. And when I saw her at a training session, she said, I'm going to do something totally different. And she keeps me up at night because if I'm going to be able to mentor a student like her, I need to learn some new things. If she's going to challenge herself like that, I need to learn new things. Look, pick a president who's going to stay up at night thinking about how they can work for you.
30
Trying
seconds.
to understand how they can keep on the edge and make sure that you're exactly where you need to be and that they fight for you. But don't just pick somebody who's going to stay up. Pick somebody who's in the game. Pick somebody who stepped out there. Pick somebody who understands how to do the work and how to reach out and how to include other people to get solutions. I want you to get real quickly. I'm going to try to share this with you. This is my screen here, and you can go to that QR code there. And you can find out more about me and hear from people who have worked with me and what they say about me, not just what I say about myself.
Thank you. Thank you. Amir, will you please give us your closing statement?
Yeah, first I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. I really appreciate, NABJ inviting me here and everybody taking the time out of their Wednesday afternoon or evening, depending on where you are, to join us. I think one of the questions earlier was, what is the biggest challenges facing digital journalists? But I think another question that a local chapter asked me was, what is the biggest digital challenge to NABJ? And I think that's awareness and education. And I say that because whenever I'm at the booth at these NABJ conventions, people still don't understand what I do. A lot of people still think that I write for a show or that I produce, and I do neither of those things. And so if you elect me as VP of Digital, I promise to continue teaching you all what digital is and what digital means and things like that. And I want to continue defining digital for NABJ. You see my Instagram and handles in the chat. You can reach me at Amir Vera on all platforms. I'm also amirvera@gmail.com. Everything's real easy to remember. And if you need testimony from other members about what they think about me, what I've done in the past and things like that, you can also, there's a giant thread on my Twitter. You can also look on my IG highlights and see all those. And once again, thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Amir. Anthony, how about your closing statement?
I just want to say thank you to NABJ and just for the opportunity of being here, and to the people on this panel as well. One of the things that you're getting with me is someone who has a voice for the voiceless, who wants to hear you out about things that you care about on a daily basis. I want to be the change that can move mountains. I want to be able to hear what you have to say, and I'm someone who's going to be proactive and active with everything that's going on. Like I said in my beginning, in my opening statement, it's about mentorship, it's about having a voice, and it's about being a change maker. With mentors, you're able to learn things and grow every single day. With having a voice, there's so many areas where you may not seem like you have a voice, and having someone who will advocate for you to have that voice can take you further than ever before. And I just really appreciate it.
Thank you. And we will wrap up with Alex, your closing statement.
Yeah, I think Grant needs to go after me, but I would love to have a closing statement. Thank you, everybody, for coming out to hear us and hear our vision for NABJ in the future. If there's one thing that I want y'all to take away about me and my candidacy, is that I'm not somebody who opens the door to slam it shut. I'm somebody who appreciates everyone who opened the door for me, who advocated for me and my skills. And I want to be that person for the generation that's coming right after me and the Gen Zers like myself who are getting ready to graduate and go to the real world next summer. So yeah, if you elect me, I'll be someone who holds office hours every month, like I did when I was editor-in-chief of the Daily Northwestern. I'm somebody who is accessible. You can reach me over Twitter, over email, and I want to meet people where they're at. I want to listen to the concerns of student journalists and be willing to work with adult members on the board as well to see how we can put those resources towards the incoming talent for industry. Thank you for coming out again, and vote for Alex Perry. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And Grant, will you please give us your closing statement?
Yeah, so here on HBU's campus, when I was president of our on-campus broadcast club and in other positions, I was known for getting things done. And so whatever that may be for the needs of students, Black journalists, and NABJ, I'm here to be that liaison between them and the senior board members to get those things done. And like I outlined earlier, the shift to digital, knowing the business, funding, whether that's in the form of salary or funding to come to conventions, those are some of the main things
30 seconds.
that students are facing right now. And I want to be able to bring solutions to those problems. And so because I'm a go-getter, because I'm not afraid to ask for what students need, and because I want to give back, I will do everything in my power in this position to get those things done by working with students and with the NABJ. So please feel free to reach out to me at my socials or my email listed in the chat. And I appreciate your vote. So thank you.
Thank you very much. And thanks to all of the candidates. I hope that our audience is as enthused as I am by your responses and your dedication, as it appears to be, for NABJ. We have a drop dead time limit. So thanks to each of you for joining us, and I hope that you are as excited about the candidates as I am. Please be reminded to join us for the second candidates forum, which will be August 3rd, 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. At the convention in Birmingham. See you in Birmingham. I look forward to meeting the candidates and some of you. Everybody feel free to walk up and say hello. So good night and have a great week.